Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show on this Saturday, January 15th. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service on behalf of our partners at Alaska Public Media. It's been an active day, especially when it comes to geologic activity. We had a major eruption of an undersea volcano near Tonga early this morning, and it's triggered tsunamis. We don't know of the extent of any damage there around the Tonga region simply because communications have been cut. But I'll show you a satellite image coming up here that's very impressive of this eruption. Tsunami advisories have been extended into this latter portion of Saturday afternoon to include the Aleutian chain up through Cold Bay, the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, as well as the Pribilof Islands, including St. Paul and St. George. Observed maximum waves in Alaska have been as high as 3.3 feet in King Cove, 1.7 feet at Yakutat, and 1.6 feet at Sand Point. The main thing is, even though these aren't super large waves, they have a lot of energy and can cause very dangerous currents and sudden rises of the water level. So that's what makes them very dangerous. There have been some reports of wave heights as high as 2 to 4 feet along the California coast, and generally across Alaska, across Hawaii, 1 to 2 feet. So stay tuned. There'll be likely some other updates, but milder temperatures are anticipated here as we go through the end of the month with a chance of above normal precipitation. We certainly did enjoy some milder temperatures for a change, especially seeing how cold it has been this late fall through December into at least the first week or so of the new year. So here are where the tsunami advisories remain in effect there from the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, especially Cold Bay, southwestward through the Aleutian chain and up there through St. Paul. So far in these areas, the highest waves have been about 2 feet or so, but again, there are reverberations, so these advisories are updated hourly, so you're going to have to check some other sources online just to make sure we get in the clear here as we go through this evening. But here is the satellite image from the Japanese weather satellite Himawari, and this is very impressive. You can see this erupted from a tranquil scene to this. This is kind of the maximum extent of the explosion, and you can see the shock wave or the ring surrounding it. So there's likely some significant tsunami there somewhere in the Tonga region. And again, I mentioned that the internet has been knocked out there, so communications, we have not received any updates or specific information on to the extent of damage in that area. Nevertheless, very, very significant event and noteworthy. And if you'd like additional weather information, you can go to weather.gov. You'll see a map of the continental U.S. along with Alaska and Hawaii at the bottom. It's a point and click. You can get forecast, watches, warnings, advisories, and much more information. And looking at the satellite imagery, we continue to watch moisture stream up from the North Pacific up toward Haida Gwaii, and that's going to bring some more rain into the southern panhandle here as we head into Sunday. Other moisture is streaming northward, and it'll get the Anchorage Bowl on up through the lower Matanuska-Susitna valleys, where we could pick up a quick 2 to 4 inches of snow, especially early this Saturday night. And that moisture continues to stream northward. A couple troughs of low pressure up across the central interior up through the northwest will keep areas of light snow going there as well. And then off to the lower left, you can see the curl counterclockwise spin in the cloud cover. Low pressure is located south of the western Aleutians with an occluded front lifting up through the western half of the Aleutians. Here's the weather map this afternoon. High pressure ridge across the Russian Arctic coast to the Canadian Northwest Arctic coast. Low pressure there up near the Kenai Peninsula, north end of Cook Inlet, and that's going to enhance the snow that we're going to see in south central areas here at least early tonight, with lingering areas of rain along the panhandle, inner channels and outer coast there, and then areas of lighter precipitation spreading northward through the Aleutian chain as that occluded front will work its way northeastward and gradually weaken. Another low is going to be lifting up from the North Pacific, heading toward Haida Gwaii and squeezing there between Haida Gwaii and the southern panhandle, bringing some additional rain on Sunday. And that system, not especially strong, not as strong as more recent ones, but will continue to weaken. We'll continue to see patchy light snow across the eastern interior from Copper River on up along the east side of the Alaska Range Alcan border and back up through the northwest and especially along north of the Yukon River, with areas of lighter rain showers extending out through the Aleutian chain, where temperatures will likely get at least into the lower 40s. By Monday, still a trough of low pressure lingering across the northern into the southwest parts of the state, where we'll see areas of patchy light snow continue, and just a trough that just lingers through the Aleutian chain near and north of the Aleutians on Monday, and then weakening low pressure moving into British Columbia, and drier conditions will be returning early next week to the Panhandle. Here are the lows Sunday morning. Still a little above freezing the outer coast of the Panhandle. Otherwise, everybody else will see lows getting down in the 20s, teens. And then for Sunday afternoon, a little cooler there in the south central areas, back into the 20s instead of some of the 40s we saw Friday. Still lower 40s there across the southern Panhandle at Ketchikan and Craig. By Monday morning, could be 15 below at Glen Allen, with cooler temperatures there across the south central interior, and highs on Monday afternoon, teens to lower 20s south central, still 30s across the Panhandle and down through Kodiak Island and the Alaska Peninsula. Coldest temperature Sunday morning, 20s, even some 30s below there across the North Slope and Arctic coast. Coldest daytime highs again along the Arctic coast and North Slope. Readings though could be a bit above or below zero there through the middle and upper Yukon Valley. And Monday morning, coldest temperatures again up there around Prudhoe Bay, Dead Horse on over to Kaktovik. And then as we go into Monday afternoon, you'll find temperatures single digits above zero to near 10 degrees as you run down through the lower Yukon Valley. And temperatures Sunday morning will generally be in the single digits up through the southwest interior, 20s along the Alaska Peninsula and above freezing Dutch Harbor westward, generally mid-30s. And then for Sunday afternoon, highs will remain in the teens across the interior and along the southwest coast, including Bristol Bay, but getting up into the 30s as you creep up along the Alaska Peninsula. And some lower 40s possible there at Dutch Harbor. And then Monday morning lows, still single digits there across the upper, the interior there, the Yukon and Kuskokwim River basins, to a bit above 10 degrees along the Bristol Bay coast, and then in the 30s as you go from about the mid-Alaska Peninsula. Certainly Cold Bay westward will stay above freezing. And a quick check, afternoon highs will generally be in the teens across the southwest interiors, 30s with some lower 40s as you go out along the Aleutian chain. But more importantly, temperature outlook January 21st through the 25th, as well as the 23rd through the 29th is calling for much above normal temperatures across the southern half of the state. So we could see some more temperatures above 40 at times in some areas. And that's also going to translate to above normal precipitation with that moist flow off the Gulf and North Pacific. So there could be some additional snowfall, especially across the central interior.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
It's time now for your aviation weather, and if you have a flight planned Sunday into Monday, we have generally high pressure out over eastern Russia along the Arctic coast through the Arctic Ocean, Beaufort Sea into the northwest Canadian Arctic coast. Weak low pressure out over the northern Gulf washes out as another low pressure lifts out of the North Pacific and heads northeastward up toward Haida Gwaii and the far southern end of the Panhandle. An area of low pressure well south of the western Aleutians will fling an occluded front up in through at least the middle Aleutians, but that system will generally tend to be weakening, and we have area trough low pressure lagging back through the interior and along the west coast, so that's going to keep some areas of snow, light snow going there. Rather widespread IFR conditions anticipated from the Yukon River Valley, especially along north of the Alaska Range westward through Norton Sound, Kotzebue Sound, the Seward Peninsula, and along the west coast. Also rather extensive IFR through the inner channels of the Panhandle along the interior coastal mountains. And then on Monday morning, look for the greatest concentration of IFR from the western Brooks Range and North Slope down through the Seward Peninsula and extending down there along areas of the west coast, including Nunavik Island and much of the central Bering. and out through the central, eastern Aleutians and tip of the Alaska Peninsula. On Monday, look for IFR conditions to wane and VFR conditions to appear across much of the Panhandle, east portion of the state along the Alcan border. But rather extensive IFR conditions continue from along the Arctic coast, the vicinity of Utqiagvik, southward through the Brooks Range, through and along the Yukon River, out through Norton Sound and down along the west coast, Nunavik Island, all the way through the central Bering Sea, including St. Paul and George, on up towards St. Matthew, and the eastern Aleutians and tip of the Alaska Peninsula. Pass conditions on Sunday, Aniktuvik Pass should generally see VFR conditions, but as you go west of there, MVFR will hold. Adigan Pass should generally see VFR conditions on Sunday. As we go south and west, Lake Clark and Merrill will start out with IFR conditions, but should improve to VFR as we go through the afternoon and early evening. Rainy Pass will hold on to some IFR conditions in the morning, giving way to MVFR conditions. And as we round through the central Alaska Range, Windy Pass should generally hold on to IFR conditions on Sunday, with MVFR conditions by afternoon as you fly south of the south entrance. And then Isabel should see IFR conditions become MVFR, while it's the Metastases MVFR conditions become IFR as well. And then going back down toward the south and west, Tanita, we'll see IFR conditions giving way to MVFR conditions. And Portage a bit better. Look for MVFR conditions of the morning becoming VFR. And then, as I mentioned earlier, much of the Panhandle will be socked in with IFR conditions, especially through the inner channels, and in the north end there, Chilkoot and White will see IFR throughout Sunday. Looking at freezing levels, there is a bit of a bump in the freezing levels along the far southern portion of the Panhandle, 2,000 to 4,000, upwards to 6,000 feet there as you get toward the end of Haida. And then also out along the central Aleutians, 2,000-foot freezing level, with the surface freezing level running from around the northern Gulf Coast to just south of Kodiak Island, across the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, and out through the lower Bering. The greatest threat for icing on Sunday will be in the southern Panhandle around Haida Gwaii into portions of the coastal areas of British Columbia between 5,000 and 17,000 feet, where there could be some considerable moderate icing. Elsewhere, icing should generally be isolated between 2,000 and 10,000 feet central interior, and also out over the central and eastern Aleutians between 5,000 and 14,000 feet. Strongest upper level jet stream winds at 30,000 feet are around 90 to 100 knots from the Kenai Peninsula out over the northern Gulf, coming on shore through the northern half of the Panhandle. And as we drop down to 9,000 feet, we see strongest winds there, western British Columbia, upwards of 60-65 knots, broad area of 35 to 45 knot northwesterly winds over the Gulf. And then as we come on down to 3,000 feet, we see winds there along western British Columbia, 40 to as high as 50 knots there along the British Columbia coast. Also out over the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, winds upwards to 50 knots, and then also far western Aleutians out toward the coast of Japan. That'll translate to the threat of turbulence of the southern portion of the Panhandle, as well as the northwest, surface to 4,000 feet. Nunavik, I should say St. Lawrence Island, surface to 3,000 feet, and along the Aleutians, surface to 3,000 feet.
Dual polarization technology is a major upgrade to the current radar system. It allows forecasters a better idea of what's actually out there and can help keep you safe.
Current radar technology transmits and receives information in the horizontal direction, which is very limited. Dual polarization technology, in addition to the horizontal, transmits and receives vertical energy, which allows forecasters to get information about the size, shape, and phase of the precipitation. We can use that information to better determine the precipitation type to expect at your given location.
There you have it. This new technology is currently being installed in radars across the country and is already being used by National Weather Service forecasters to produce better, more accurate forecasts. Learn more here and follow us. Want to know about the future of weather radar? Well, the National Severe Storms Lab has it here with its new phased array radar. Let's check it out.
It's a non-moving radar. It has 4 faces of the antenna, each pointing in different directions. One of the big advantages is that we're seeing so far, it can sample the area around the radar in less than a minute, maybe even a half a minute. And this is 5-6 times faster than what they can do today.
NSSL is leading the development of future weather radar with this project. Learn more here and follow us. The Storm Prediction Center is one of the NOAA weather partners. They are located in the National Weather Center in Norman, Oklahoma. Greg Carbon gives us a glimpse into what the SPC does.
Our mission is to analyze and forecast severe thunderstorms and the potential for tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds from those thunderstorms across the lower 48 states, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. One of the primary missions of the Storm Prediction Center is the issuance of severe thunderstorm and tornado watches across the country when conditions appear to be coming together to support the development of severe thunderstorms and tornadoes.
The world-class meteorologists in the Storm Prediction Center specialize in severe weather and keeping you safe. Learn more here and follow us.
The National Severe Storms Lab is working on increasing the lead time for severe weather warnings. The national average for tornado warnings is currently 13 minutes, but more notice would be helpful, especially for those in charge of moving large groups to shelter. Warn on Forecast will help forecasters issue hazardous weather warnings earlier. The project will give them more info about the chances of strong winds, large hail, and even tornadoes.
Currently, warnings are created by forecasters looking at the atmosphere outside, understanding its volatility, and then comparing that to how they see the Doppler radar presenting what's going on inside thunderstorms. Warn on Forecast is an idea where we're going to take the massive amounts of satellite, radar, and surface data and stick them all into a very high resolution prediction model. And then by producing new forecasts every 15 or 20 minutes, the forecasters hopefully will be able to use that model to produce warnings that extend out to an hour.
Before the National Weather Service can use this tool, it must be developed and tested. One big challenge will be deciding how to get the model predictions to the forecasters.
I'm going to keep this one very low. I'm just adjusting the track.
These hazardous weather prediction models are going to produce a huge amount of output. And this fire hose of data is just too much for forecasters to handle in real time quickly. So in order to help deal with that, NSSL has developed a related project called Facets. And Facets is the methodology which will enable forecasters to focus very quickly on the most important threats.
Once Warn on Forecast and Facets are proven to be reliable and effective, then forecasters will be better able to inform you of threats nearby. Learn more here and follow us.
The Hazardous Weather Test Bed is located at the National Weather Center in Norman, Oklahoma. It is used for experiments that will allow forecasters to learn and apply new technologies.
The Hazardous Weather Test Bed is a really unique space throughout all of NOAA. And this is where the researchers and the operational folks come together in a common space to solve operational problems and to test new research tools that the research community is working on. The goal is to accelerate the transfer from research to operations of the newest tools and techniques.
People come from around the world to collaborate on this unique project.
And we can bring together not only NOAA people, but also university people, faculty, researchers, private sector meteorologists, folks working in other countries in meteorology, forecasters can all come together and focus on what the problem of the day is with the forecasters.
Each spring, several experiments occur in the hazardous weather test bed. Learn more here and follow us.
What are you looking at? And what are you ignoring? Did you notice the NOAA logo in the corner? Forecasters have a lot of information in front of them too. Every second counts during severe weather, and decisions about where to focus are constantly being made. This could be even more challenging in the future. Phased array radar will produce 4 to 6 times more information than what we have now, which brings us to the question researchers are hoping to answer. Will more radar information affect forecasters' decisions?
From our past experiments, we've learned a lot about how forecasters think during the warning decision process, but we've also learned that those thought processes are very complex, and for that reason, we need a better way to be able to track forecasters' cognitive activity.
Inbounds and possibly golf ball sized hail.
And eye tracker is a piece of technology that is used to determine in real time where someone's eye gaze is located. And these eye trackers are typically video-based, which means a camera sits below a computer monitor, and with infrared light and vector analysis, we can determine where a person is looking and how their eyes are moving.
Eye tracking is already being used in the medical field and air traffic control. Using similar research methods, NSSL is discovering the benefit for weather forecasting too. Phased array radar will give forecasters a lot more to think about. Understanding their decision-making process will help researchers develop even more user-friendly tools. So what's the benefit for you? Even better weather warnings. To learn more, check us out online and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and now we conclude things with our last segment dealing with marine weather and the sea ice edge. And we have extensive sea ice through the northern and eastern Bering all the way down to the Alaska Peninsula. And we're going to continue to see winds mainly out of the northeast off the mainland as we go through Sunday into Monday. So there's going to continue to be a southerly as well as westward drift to the ice. No real changes there. And looking at what we have for winds and waves across the panhandle on Sunday, some lighter winds, generally 10 to 15 knots from the south-southeast across the inner channels. Waves generally a few feet there. On the outer coast, winds will be out of the northwest at about 15 to 20 knots. Waves 7 to perhaps as high as 9 or 10 feet off of Craig. And then for Monday, look for northerly winds and offshore flow there through the inner channels at 10 to 20 knots, waves 2 to 4 feet, and generally north-northwest winds along the outer coast with waves running around 7 feet. Across the northwestern Gulf, winds will be westerly at 25 knots off the Kenai Peninsula with waves of 9 feet. Northwesterly, 3-foot waves in Prince William Sound and Cook Inlet from Homer down toward the mouth of Cook Inlet. Westerly winds at 25 knots with waves of 5 to 8 feet. For Monday, variable winds across the northwest Gulf around 10 knots, including Prince William Sound. Waves only a couple feet in Prince William, but 5 feet or so off the coast, and northeast winds at 15 knots through lower Cook Inlet with waves of 3 to 4 feet. Sunday, westerly winds 15 to 20 knots across Kodiak Island, waves 4 to 7 feet there, but they do increase out across the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, picking up to 30 knots from the southeast, with waves around 11 feet off of Sand Point and 7 feet there north of Cold Bay. On Monday, winds will be out of the east-southeast across Kodiak Island at 15 knots, and generally out of the east-southeast 20 to 30 knots across the Alaska Peninsula. Waves 8 to 11 feet on the North Pacific side and around 7 feet where there is open water north of Cold Bay. Across the Aleutians, winds will be out of the southeast, generally in the 25 to 30 knot range. Strongest winds out there toward Dutch Harbor, and then on the far end, easterly winds to 45 knot gales west of Kiska. And by Monday, look for winds across the eastern and central Aleutians to generally be from the south-southeast. Still could be upwards 30-35 knots around Dutch Harbor, and easterly to 40 knots west of Kiska. And looking at the southwest coast, winds will generally be out of the northeast, 15 to as high as 30 knots. And that's going to, again, cause the ice to push south and westward. We could see waves 10-11 feet around St. Matthew, as well as St. Paul and St. George. And for Monday, winds continue out of the north through east at around 25 knots or so over the ice, but upwards to 45 knots in the vicinity of St. Matthew, with waves there running as high as 16 feet. And along the Arctic coast, winds will be out of the east-northeast, 20 knots or so, where there is ice in place, turning more northerly and accelerating through the lower Chukchi Sea and the Bering Strait at 30 to 35 knots. And on Monday, winds will be out of the east-northeast along the Arctic coast, 15 to 20 knots. And again, accelerating and turning more northerly through the lower Chukchi Sea and Bering Strait to the north side of St. Lawrence Island between 25 and 30 knots. And a quick check here, we are looking at low pressure remaining overnight, early Sunday morning there, the Seward Peninsula producing some areas of light snow that will spread all the way up into the interior, west side of the state along a trough. Another low pressure could bring some additional rain to the southern, especially southern portion of the Panhandle on Sunday. And then that low well southwest of the Aleutians will have a tendency to weaken as a couple of fronts kind of weaken and dissolve into troughs just north of the central and eastern Aleutians by Monday. But we'll still see some areas of light snow persisting across the northern, central, and western parts of the state as a trough of low pressure just lingers there. And a little drier northerly flow coming in across the Panhandle will bring a little break in the weather for them to start the new week. And I also just want to add, latest news, late report now is that the tsunami advisories have been canceled for Alaska, so that's good news. The situation has at least begun to settle. Stay tuned to later forecast, and of course, I'll be back here tomorrow night to give you the latest weather information, and I certainly appreciate you being here with me tonight because we need you, and I also want to thank our partner, Alaska Public Media. So join me again tomorrow.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.